Almost.
Okay.
Miles, good job, yay.
Okay. All right, we are live streaming and recording. So whenever you guys are ready, go ahead.
All right, we'll go ahead and call to order the June 8th Franklin City Schools Board of Education work session. Dr. Stander, if you can call the roll.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Here.
Mrs. Raleigh,
Here,
Mr. Sizemore,
Here.
Mr. Nipper.
Here.
All right, thank you. And we'll go ahead and go to the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Ready? All right. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and justice.
For all.
All right, and next up we have adoption of the agenda. Before we go forward, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda as presented? All right, hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
So
so
moved.
moved,
All right, I think that was Mr. Nipper, and Mrs. Raleigh, was that a second?
yes,
All right, Dr. Stander?
Mrs. Wolfenbarger,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh,
yes,
Mr. Sizemore,
Yes.
Mr. Nipper.
Yes.
All right, and first up, we have recognition of guest and public participation. Don't believe we had anybody request to be on the call.
I am
No.
not seeing anything in comments. So.
Okay. All right, we'll move on to presentation of the Sue Chmielewski Teaching Award.
Thank you for having me so I could share this with you. And I'm glad that you said her last name because every time I go to say it, I'm sure I'm going to butcher it and be disrespectful. So, but her legacy has been described to me. So it's great that this award was, created in her honor. What went out to students, staff, and parents was a statement that said, this Crystal Apple is an award that recognizes and honors excellence in teaching, things from being compassionate, empathetic, patient, raising a level of expectations, enthusiastic, passionate about kids, a team player, and then there's a whole host of things. And so students, staff, parents all sent in nominations. We decided to recognize 2 staff members. The first one was Josh Long, whose nomination rolled in from a student, an 8th grade student, and very well written, and spoke to how he thought that Mr. Long didn't always get recognized for the work that he did in the junior high. And then the other one was for Rachel Chamberlain, who's a 7th grade math teacher in the building. And that nomination came from a couple of colleagues and just really celebrated what she brings to the building, especially having been an alumni, and her coaching and teaching and just dedication to team and academics and all of the above. So we had a small gathering on the 29th, which was teacher checkout day. Especially to celebrate Melanie Cochran's retirement, and that is where we officially presented these to the 2 staff members. So, but certainly wanted to share with you, and we celebrate both of those colleagues, and it was well deserved that they received them this year. So,
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's kind of a different situation with them not being able to be presented with them at our meeting, but thank you very much for giving that presentation, Mrs. Birchfield.
sure.
All right. And next up, we have Mrs. Denise and sixth grade camp.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. It is my pleasure to come to you this evening and with a proposal. You know, we did a little bit of digging, and I hope my records are accurate. But Kenny Smith, I remember him saying that he was such a proponent of sixth grade camp because I believe it was his sixth grade year where something happened and they did not have camp. But what I'm looking at, sixth grade camp has been a legacy in Franklin City Schools for 55 years. Isn't that amazing? And COVID-19 created an issue with that this year. And so in talking with Ken Holland and you know, as every day something new comes down from the Department of Education and the governor's office, we started toying with the idea of, would it be possible to have a one-day sixth grade camp so that those sixth graders can have that experience of team building, of collegiality, and those things before they go into seventh grade. So after a lot of back and forth with Camp Kern and what the state is mandating for camps in public facilities is that, we are proposing, and I sent the flyer to you in email right before this meeting so you could see it, but we are proposing that we have a one-day sixth grade camp for Tuesday, August the 11th. Students would leave the junior high around 7:30, 7:45 on that. It's not a school day. We do have 20 of our staff members, chaperones, that is willing to, they were going to do camp anyway. They're willing to do this. We would exit from Franklin Junior High about 7:30, 7:45, arrive at Camp Kern at 9 o'clock. And they would be divided by their cabins just as if they were going to spend the night there. So we'd shake them all up. And they would experience those activities that are, as I'm looking at the audience, that many of us participated in as sixth graders. And then they would have lunch, participate again in the afternoon type of exercises, have dinner, and then that evening they would have one or the other. They would either have the traditional dance that's typically on that Thursday night, or they will have the traditional bonfire that's typical on the Wednesday night, one of those two. The cost for this is $46 per person. Here's the interesting thing. With all of the fundraising, we've collected enough money, and we know when the people know when they fundraise that if they fundraise more than what they need to go to camp, the 3-day, 2-night, 3-day venture was $100 this year, but they know if they fundraise more than what they need, it goes in the pot. So what we are proposing, that if they fundraised in any way, shape, or form, whether or not they earn the $46 or not, but they fundraised, we have enough. There were 116 students that participated in fundraising out of 216 students. So we have a bunch that didn't fundraise. So it all works out that everyone can go. We are $2,000 short of having all 216 students be able to go to camp, whether or not they fundraise. But they already had notification that if they did not fundraise and they needed a scholarship, they needed to contribute $30 for the day camp. So we have a flyer this flyer with a letter that says, hey, you fundraised. If you're interested in going to camp, notify your building secretary so we can get a head count and save your spot. We have another letter that can go out to the others that did not fundraise and say, hey, we are going to have a sixth grade camp experience. If you are interested, please reach out to your building secretary and contribute your $30 to hold your spot. As of this meeting this evening, I don't have a head count. I should have done that for you prior to this meeting. That was my error in not reaching out to the building secretaries. But all those students do have until end of business on Thursday, July the 11th. I wanted to, June, this week. Thursday, June the 11th, before those elementary secretaries go off for the summer. So I can get back with you, pending that you think it's a good idea and you're interested in approving that for our sixth grade students, I can get back some hard numbers for you. But we wanted to propose that those students at least have a partial sixth grade camp experience, as is the tradition here at Franklin City Schools.
Yeah, Mrs. Denise, I guess, want to make sure everything is following the state's guidelines and, everything that comes
Yes,
down to ODE and the governor and all that. And it sounds like you guys would be able to do that for a one-day camp, certainly.
Yes, ma'am. We would have to follow the protocols set out by the governor for the camp. And as of today, as far as busing students, it is a limited bus seating. It was a mask or limited bus seating. Dr. Sander, in cabinet this morning, I'm afraid I'm going to misspeak because I have that in my head that it's masks or 6 feet. But wasn't that some of
That's
that
correct.
relieved?
What the health department said is masks are 6 feet. So as long as the students are wearing masks on the bus, we were able to put them coupled or so to a seat.
Thank you, sir, because I know that that's always in flux. Thank you. And
Sure.
back to masks. I know that a lot of people have a lot of angst about that, but I can tell you that I have a pledge from the city of Franklin for 1,500 masks. I believe they're disposable. 135 cloth masks have been made by DeCarla Wallace Smith. They'll be donated. Edwards Furniture has donated fabric for our seamstresses that are sewing at the Catholic Church and other churches. And the Orioles, you're going to be looking at a proposal tonight, have donated $500 toward the purchase of sewing notions so that any student, whether it be camp or day one of school, back to getting a student on a bus for 6th grade camp, if they do not come with a mask, we can provide one for them.
That's great.
Do you have any questions or concerns for me in regards to offering this opportunity?
The only thing I was going to point out, Ms. Denise, on this flyer that we have, it says Tuesday, June 10th. As far as the, is the payment date, I guess, is that?
That is, no, it's actually, I don't know about that, ma'am, because we extended it to this
Okay.
Thursday, and that, let me look at my calendar. Today is the 8th.
Thursday
It will be the
11th.
11th. That is a mistype. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I just wanted to bring
Thursday.
that up.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any discussion or questions?
I think it's great. My son's a 6th grader, and when he found out this letter came in the mail, he was over the moon excited. So
Good.
I think it's a great thing you're doing for the 6th graders here. It is a rite of passage.
It is.
Yes, thank you.
Okay.
All right. Let's see here. All right. Now we'll move on to new business. First up is a first read of the contract for Warren County ESC, Franklin City Schools, and Fenwick.
Yes, we have in your attachments are two different contracts. One is strictly for Fenwick. One is for the Franklin City Schools for our contract with the ESC. We did reduce that by approximately $80,000 compared to what we had last year. And of course, Fenwick is flow-through money for us. We don't, it comes from federal money that we send right on to the ESC for them. So that takes our seats in the various alternative schools that are used by identified students to meet the needs of our students, as well as any extra OT, PT, and so forth that we have for our identified students.
All right, any discussion or questions for Dr. Sander before we bring that back?
Yeah.
All right, we can bring that back, Dr. Sander, at our next meeting.
Okay. Next, we have a request, first read for tentative dates for 6th grade camp next year. That would be May 19th through the 21st in 2021. And we could get those dates. Mr. Holland tentatively put that out there to hold it. So we got back with them to see if we would be participating with those dates next year.
Any discussion or questions? All right, I think that's okay to bring back, Dr. Sander.
Okay, thank you.
Or did he,
Next, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to make sure, I know it's first read, but did we need to take action on that in order to reserve those dates?
We're good with that. They know, they just need to know by the end of the month. We told them that we'd tell them after the 22nd.
Okay, great.
So they're very good with us, and we appreciate that. Next is the student handbook. First read, we've got some changes. Mr. Voinovich is with us to discuss the changes with the updated on that. And we've got some very, very good high school discipline data from the PBIS program.
Okay.
Mr. Voinovich, you want to unmute yourself?
Too.
There
So,
you go.
And then
I'll tell you.
and then I'll go share screen here. Share, I believe. So everyone should be seeing the documents that Mrs. Hetzler sent over, hopefully last week or beginning of this week. So it's basically these are the documents that you have before you. Highlighted in blue are some of the things that we recognized or anticipated in this upcoming year, or recognized some things that we wanted to get ahead of or adapt to from things we saw this past year. So we've noticed some smartwatches, or more increase in smartwatches, particularly smartwatches with cellular service. So we wanted to include that in our electronic devices rule here. So also, we noticed last year that while we recognized headphones and that headphones should not be worn in the building during transition or without teacher permission, or between classes, we wanted to really emphasize that this year and make sure that it's a separate line item in our handbook. So you see that there with item 2 under that section, that they should not be worn without prior approval at any time. And we empower our staff members to work with them as well, so that way the students can use them in the classrooms if they choose to do so. Also, one thing that our building leadership team, our BLT team, wanted to emphasize in this year's handbook was making sure that students arrive every day with their devices charged. While we've had it in there in the past, we wanted to make that a separate item as well and emphasize that because this year, with everyone being one-to-one, it's something that it's just an expectation for our students to arrive with everything charged. So, and then again there in item 4, you see the smartwatches with cellular service emphasized as well. With regards to devices with cameras, just an addition of a few words here or phrases, sharing of inappropriate. Sometimes we would run into something where it's not necessarily an obscene image, but it's inappropriate for a school setting. So we just wanted to get that in there to create a bit of an umbrella to give us a little more latitude for addressing students appropriately with regards to photographs with their devices. Also, that last highlighted item there, that the rule applies to anyone taking pictures or photos while during a distance learning experience. That came up a little bit, obviously, more so in the last few months. School, that we just wanted to make sure that we addressed that issue as well, and students understood that, the distance learning, if it's online, that's still your classroom. If you're meeting through Google Hangout, that's still your classroom, and to take pictures during that time is inappropriate. An update on our vaping policy. You'll see here in the upcoming data that our vaping policy, we feel pretty confident that we're heading in the right direction with it. But I'm happy to share with you that the link there is to a free online training. I went to a Hot Topics conference in March, and I was able to share, I was able to learn a little bit about a free website there, so our students will no longer have to pay the $20. I was happy about that, that we can still educate our students on it while saving some money and foregoing the fine from Officer Myers on the first offense. That program worked out well this year, but it's nice to offer it for free. And then also just a time constraint on that it'll be due 1 week from when the consequences first issued. So they have to provide a certificate stating that they have completed that program, that training program. Did hear some good feedback on that though this year, so from students and parents alike. requesting makeup work, which you see here is more so with our students being one-to-one. We wanted to make sure that students took accountability for their work and getting their work from teachers. So the student is responsible for emailing their teacher, reaching out to them. Obviously, we'll provide any support or backup whenever that's needed or appropriate. If parents have a specific request of us, our guidance counselors, they're great to help with that as well. But with students having devices, there's no reason why they cannot reach out directly and advocate for themselves with their teachers. So if their student doesn't turn in their work in a timely manner, typically it's 1 day for each day that they were out, then that obviously could have a negative natural consequence on their grade. Exam exemption policy here, item 4 with that on page 22. We just want to make sure that our students are following the correct protocols. We had a couple students this year leading up to when we closed school due to illness earlier in the year and earlier in the first semester that just didn't quite follow protocol. And we want to make sure that our nurse knows where you are at all times and that you're accounted for, and that in order for it to be an excused absence, you need to go through the office. So we just wanted to add that specifically to address that issue. We had some updates on graduation. Principal Fromm and our school counselors and Mr. McFarland went to a great professional development conference at Butler County ESC. And here is a synopsis of the new graduation requirements that you'll see there, issued by the state and broken down it sort of cuts through all the different language and all the different options and says this is what you need to do in order to graduate. So tried to present that in an easy to read manner for students and for parents, but also provided the resources where if they want to go and look that up, they can do so. Handbook updates, and there you see for the additional resources and information, the ODE's graduation requirements. Community service, we're excited that this year we're going to be tracking community service in Transio. It's an online program that's going to help us coordinate and track the logistics of students' community services hours throughout their career. Excuse me. Commencement, obviously we added the end of course assessments, but also we wanted to reflect that they need a graduation seal for that as well. Withdrawals and transfers, we wanted to make sure that we highlighted that students need to go to report to Hampton Bennett. And then from there, taking those initial steps, they would be met at the high school with their school counselor, their guidance counselor. Contraband, again, you just see the smartwatches, it's added. Just wanted to make sure you know that that's in there. Technology usage, the line strike through this wording is where we were. So in working with this is Hudson ESTEP to strike that out of there and simplify it, because now 7 through 12 is one-to-one with regards to the devices. So, and then also just wanted to make sure that students remember that the network usage is not for personal devices, but it's for their computers, for their Chromebooks. Lastly, one handbook note here at the very end of our handbook, and it kind of talks about what we're going to do or the plan with. We have to be kind of in fluid motion as the health department outlines what we need to do, and as we work together as an administrative team and with you, with the board, to figure out how we're going to address certain issues. Just wanted to put a note in there at the end to say, hey, we're going to have a running document that's going to address these issues, where it'll be easy for people to find, and that at any point in time, aspects of this handbook could change to meet the needs and the requirements or recommendations set forth by the Board of Health or any local authorities. So it's essentially what we're going to do. It just puts in writing that at any point, if it changes, this is why. So those are the updates on the handbook. You also have a full copy of the handbook that was shared with you, I believe. If not, I'd be happy to get one for you as well. Are there any questions on any of the updates before we talk about any of the school discipline? or any questions, comments, feedback? Feeling pretty good? Okay, great. Last year, I came before you and talked a little bit about our PBIS and about the matrix that every classroom was going to have for students to see. Some of the different things that we were going to be putting up in our building for our systematic approach for positive behavior intervention and supports. And I just wanted to give you some updates on the discipline data to show you that it's working. And a lot of this is hard work from our teachers in the classrooms. I think a lot of it has to do with consistency with how Principal Fromm and I handle things, as well as offering students complete wraparound services for the guidance department, our school student services counselor, Mrs. Bayelk, and also with Mrs. Wright and Mrs. Arlinghouse, not to mention the fact that we have our Catalyst counselors in our building all the time. So we can meet any student need, just about any student need at any time at a moment's notice. So I think that this reflects the hard work of many people on our team doing this and working together. So in comparison, now all of this data that you see is up through when we shut down, our last day where students were in the building on March 12th. And the same goes back to March 12th of 2019. So from the beginning of the year through March 12th. And what you see here, a 40.8% drop in the number of referrals that we've seen in that time span, a 9% drop in the amount of referrals that we're seeing coming out of teachers' classrooms specifically. We have different areas throughout the the building, back gym, cafeteria, hallways, classrooms, but instructionally, we see a 9% drop. So that's great to see that fewer distractions in the classrooms. These are our top 5 that we saw in the 18-19 school year with regards to referrals, insubordination, disrespect, disruption to the learning environment and or educational process, chronic non-compliance or classroom expectations, and anything that's tardy related. And we were able to see significant drops in all of those. So we were very, very pleased to see that students getting to where they need to be. Oftentimes you'll hear Principal Fromm and I talk about walking with purpose, and our students have picked up on that. Our teachers help reinforce that. And so they're where they're supposed to be, when they're supposed to be there, doing what they're supposed to be doing. And that's our goal. Vaping data specifically, 58 last year to 26 this year, that 55.2% drop. I should make note that 6 of those this year, 6 of that 26 happened on March 11th and March 12th. So the last 2 days that we had students in the building. So we were in hot pursuit of vapes all the way up to the end until students left. But I believe that the education of students in that regard is helping, and students know that we don't mess around with that. There's no place for it in our building. Next page, just wanted to highlight some of the different things. Worked with Mrs. Denisi earlier with our one needs data, and that's where a lot of this came from. But it relates specifically to discipline, attendance, and student achievement. We had 80.5% of our students not receive any referrals at all this year. And you see fewer than 1% of our students received 10 or more referrals. But I think as you review this, and anyone else who is welcome to, I'll share it with anyone if you need it. But as you review that, I think you can draw a direct correlation between students who don't receive referrals with an average GPA of 3.1 and an average credits earned of 12.1, and their attendance rate, 92.1% average, with students who do receive. The more referrals you see, the lower you see that attendance or the GPA drop, and the lower you see those attendance rates go. And then you see students, if you're a student who comes in and you have no suspended hours, you're going to see on average a 3.1 or higher And if you have perfect attendance, our students this year, 11.2% with perfect attendance, you see a 3.7 GPA. So, I mean, it's something that we'll be able to share with our students and our staff next year as they come in, and our incoming freshmen, so that we can help give them concrete data to get them started on the right foot, to let them know, hey, if you're here and you're doing what you're supposed to be doing, you're going to learn, you're going to excel, and that's only going to put you in better position for the future. Moving on, the last table here, this is our EMIS reportable data. So these are all things that have been entered into and reported to the state. The data that came before that, typically that's just through our referral, our in-house referral forms that teachers do digitally. But if you can, again, if you review this chart, you'll see that we're seeing drops across the board. You see a slight uptick in truancy for this school year. And part of that is due to the fact that we do have a new truancy officer who has been working with us to pursue truancy and hold students more accountable. So that's why you see that 33% increase there. Dangerous weapons, you see that one uptick there. That was a freshman who ultimately did not finish the year with us. But otherwise across there, you see vandalism down, use and possession of tobacco down, other drugs. But if you go down toward the bottom and you see these bottom 3 rows, expulsion, out of school suspension, and in-school suspension, I mean, this just speaks volumes to our system, to our PBIS system, that we're having fewer students get expelled. We're having fewer students who are, with our progressive discipline model, the teacher detentions, office referral detentions, in-school suspension, out-of-school suspension, expulsion, recommendations. We're seeing it decrease across the board. So that's just, I think students are getting on board, and they understand that what our expectations are. And a lot of that comes from a common language across the building between administration, guidance, and our staff. So that's what I have to share with you today, and be happy to answer any questions or go from there. But thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Voinovich. I think that's really helpful in kind of seeing areas of progress, and especially the correlation of, the attendance, the tardiness, and things like that, and the grades, and credit hours earned, and all of that type of stuff. It's all related, and it's nice to have compiled like that in that form, so you can see it black and white.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes, you're very welcome. So,
all right. Anything else for Mr. Voinovich? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. And I'll put that on the student handbook changes on for next for the board meeting, if that's okay.
Yes.
Okay. Next bit is a action. I'm asking for an action item. This is something we talked about the last bit. Our last get together, we approved the facility plan for the district. We do have 100 and some odd page contract submitted to us by OFCC. Gary Sadronsky did review this for us and said it was good to go. There are, and Rob, feel free to hop in if I misspeak, but there are basically 3 parts to what the board action will be approving this time. The first part is a resolution by the school district board to accept the master facility plan for the Ohio Facilities Construction Commission Expedited Local Partnership Program. And basically, when you look at that, it talks about the state shares to be 57% and our local share to be 43%. The second part is a resolution that the ELK, we will have a $500,000 maintenance requirement, because what they do is anytime you use OFCC money, they want to make sure you're able to maintain that building or buildings in this particular case. And then the third part is the actual approval of the Expedited Local Partnership Program. So if we could have action on just one action, motion, second, and vote on all 3 of those aspects of it.
All right. Any discussion or questions before we move forward? All right, Chair will entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
Mr. Nipper, and is there a second?
Second.
Mr. Fleming? Dr. Sander?
Mr. Nipper,
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore, Mr. Sizemore, Mrs. Raleigh?
Yes. I'm sorry,
Yes.
Mike. I'm
Okay, that's okay. I got you now. Mrs. Raleigh is a yes as well. Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger.
Yes,
Thank you all very, very much. That's exciting.
thank you. All
Next, we
right,
have personnel. Oh, I'm sorry.
no, I was just gonna say, next up, it's your turn, Dr. Sander.
Okay. Next is personnel. Due to the fact that we had to move the PE back to July, we did have a little bit of a conflict with vacation time with one of our PE teachers. So the one PE teacher will not be able to teach 1 week of summer school. So this is a first read that Brad Childers would be the summer school PE teacher for those 5 days when Mr. Woods is gone on vacation, and that would be at the same rate, which is $110 a day.
All right. Any questions?
Is that okay for you?
All right, we can bring that back.
Okay. Next is.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you ask for,
No, this is just first reads. You're fine.
Okay.
Thanks. Next is another first read. This is for Katie Kenzer. Basically, when the change from Mr. Ward to Mrs. Birchfield, this one slipped through the cracks, but she did participate in those duties, and Katie did do the duties of the science department chair this past year. So this would be a first read to hire her as that science chair for the 2019-20 school year.
all right, thank you, Dr. Sander, we can bring that back.
Okay. Next is first read. Part of what we have to do during the summertime is provide extended school year services to some special identified students. Mr. McFarland is in charge of getting teachers to do this. We were not able to get a current math teacher in the district to do that. So this is a first read for Mary Evans, who is a retired teacher from us that would do the extended school year, and that would be at the same rate that we would have under our FEA contract. And I believe, Mr. McFarland, that's 10 days. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's 10 hours of tutoring
10 hours.
ESY service. Yeah, so it's limited to that right now because it really fulfills the need on one student who's at the high school and specifically needs Algebra 2 tutoring, which you can imagine a lot of our math staff not well versed in that curriculum. Mrs. Evans, as you guys know, long-time teacher at Franklin, very well versed in that. So she'll be a great tutor for that specific student. So this is right now limited to a 10-hour stipend for that ESY service.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
And next, I would ask action on, if it's okay. We do have a couple of certified resignations, and that is that Caitlin Broman, junior high ELA teacher, effective 8/12/20, and Brittany Rathage, junior high music, effective 8/13/2020. Caitlin is leaving to go to the Lakota school system, and Brittany is going back home. I'm not sure the district, but she's originally, her and her husband originally from the Cleveland area, and they're moseying back up to the Cleveland area.
All right, any objection to taking action on those tonight?
No.
All right, Chair will entertain a motion.
So moved.
Mrs. Raleigh?
Second.
Second.
Oh, second, Mr. Fleming, I think had it first. Dr. Sander?
Okay.
Mr. Nipper,
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore,
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger.
Yes.
Last item for me is a first read for certified new hires. We have 3 of them. Erica Bell for a 1-year art position at the high school for Stephanie Strong's 1-year leave of absence. The second is Aaron Janico, science teacher. That was created when we had transfer in from the science department to the intervention specialist. And then last, we have Cassandra Smith, 4th grade teacher at Skank Elementary. And that was filled with the void when we transferred to a TESOL teacher, second language teacher.
All right, I believe we can bring those back for next meeting.
Okay. Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. And next up, we'll move to the treasurer's portion of the agenda.
Are you able to hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have 4 items, and I hope you don't think me impatient, but I would like to consider all of them for action tonight in a consent agenda. The first one is a $7 donation to Shank for general purposes. And the second one we talked about earlier, which is a $500 donation to the district for the purpose of constructing masks, which I think is probably something that needs to be done sooner than later. The third is the reimbursement resolution, which we had last month as a first read. And it is something we don't have to do, but if we do need to do, it's nice to have in place to reimburse the district for any expenditures for anything out of the general fund or capital projects for the purpose of the construction and renovation of buildings. And the last one is a resolution for certifying the maximum maturity of bonds, which in this case would be 37 years. And that then gives us the opportunity to begin our discussion with Matt Nolan of developing the next resolution that the board would act upon for placing the bond issue on the ballot and requesting the county auditor to provide us with the millage for that debt. So I'd like to ask the board to consider consent agenda for those 4 items.
All right, is there any questions or discussion for Mr. Giuffre before we move forward? I don't see any reason to delay on those. It seems like getting a head start on the millage issue would be good. And of course, we don't want to wait on donations, so.
Thank you.
All right, the chair will entertain a motion to approve as a consent agenda the treasurer's recommendations.
So moved.
Mrs. Raleigh,
Mhm.
is there a second?
Second.
Oh, Mr. Fleming, Dr. Sander,
Mr. Nipper,
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore, Mr. Sizemore, Mrs. Raleigh,
Yes.
Mr. Fleming,
Yes.
Mrs. Wolfenbarger.
yes. All right, thank you. And we will move on to unfinished business, the high school van trip.
Yes, the band, back on October 28th, we did approve the band trip to Orlando, Florida. Was originally scheduled for May the 7th through the 10th of 2021. The request was put in to change those dates to February 19th to the 22nd. Obviously, this is all based upon being allowed to travel and things still being opened up. But what that does, that makes for a better time, so we do not interfere with any AP exams or end of course exams, and that was requested by Mr. Long.
Okay, any discussion or questions about that? Okay,
Okay, I'll bring that back.
fine, yeah.
Thank you all very, very much.
Thank you. And next up, we have new business facilities committee. And is that, Mr. Nipper, are you going to talk about that?
Yeah, I was just, in the last board meeting, we had talked about we building a new high school and renovating junior high school. And then one thing that, like I addressed Dr. Sanders, there wasn't a site already designated to put the school. So been approached by different people in the community, wanting to know where it's going to go, what it's going to be, and even some other public officials. So one thing I think I've discussed with everybody is about putting a committee together just to look at alternative sites so we can present something to the community like we did with the school configuration itself and everything else, let them know, hey, here's our possible locations for it. This is what the cost would be. And what do you want? I know I've already talked to everybody on the board, and I think Andy expressed a desire to be a part of that. I know Denny Sanders would like to be a part of it from the city aspect because he knows where a lot of the different land is. And I think, in my opinion, it should be like 2 school board members, Rodney, Dr. Sanders, a city person, and then a person from our the place we're working for to get this.
Yeah, I think, I know, some of the issues have been, we had some sites, I believe, in the survey for elementaries, but the junior high school, it was discussed by the CAT team, obviously. I think they kind of had an understanding of what SHP had recommended based upon what we own. And one of those, when I first saw it, I was kind of surprised by, but I think with the junior high Hampton Bennett connected, it made sense. So I understand, Bob, obviously, where you're coming from on that. At the same time, I think we would be on a very tight timeline, just given that school is going to be starting in August. We need to start talking about levy and going to the community with a plan about, what that's going to look like. And I don't want to undermine what has been done already by the finance committee, by the CAT team and things like that. That's my only concern, is just what would our timeline look like? And maybe Dr. Sander can help with that a little bit.
I think we would have to have, we start back with the staff on the 13th of August. Students, that's a Thursday. The students come back the 18th, which is a Tuesday. During that time is when we really need to kick off the levy. So I would say that we would need to have this committee work complete with a recommendation at the August work session. I would suggest we have SH&P representatives so we can develop and send out surveys as needed to find out this information, to give options. And then we would also need to work on what the possible millage would be, because with the finance committee, we worked very hard, and I appreciate the work of Mrs. Raleigh and Mr. Sizemore, Mr. Giuffre, that we were looking at a 4.94 mil levy. So any purchase of land would need to go above it if we need to do that, but we would need to have those figures and the exact millage at that time, so we know that what we need to have for our literature and so forth to kick off the campaign, because we're going to have to hit it hard come middle of August, and really press that very strongly.
I think we need to be careful to even say the words purchase of land. I mean, we've had CAT 4 months. That was not even discussed in our CAT meeting. If we don't say with what the community wants, I mean, I would have no problem, like, if there was a swap for something of ours, but I'm not interested in raising millage to purchase property at all. That would do nothing but raise the millage, and at this point in time, the millage is lower than any other school in Warren County with more buildings.
That's why I raised the issue in the last meeting and purposely asked, have we discussed where the high school is going? And either I was misled or I didn't understand. I was specifically told that we've not even looked at where the high school is going yet. All we were doing was looking at how many buildings that we wanted. Now my understanding is we've already, I guess, assumed or planned it going to where the junior high is. We've already budgeted the millage for it, and it's already done. Well, that's contrary to what I was told in the last meeting.
Well, I don't think that's accurate, because if you go to any of the CAP meetings, they had shown kind of what their different ideas were for the junior high school placement based upon the land that we own. I don't think it was set in stone necessarily. So I don't think it's a bad idea, I mean, personally, to have a committee to look at that and explore that. I mean, that's not what I'm saying at all, but you know, I also kind of along the lines of what Lori was saying with respect to purchasing versus like maybe a swap or something. I mean, maybe there's something that could be done there.
Well, I mean, it depends on, I mean, you only have one opportunity to look at all and present it in the best light. And I don't know if you guys had the opportunity, very few people that I talk to are in favor of the junior high site. I mean, I've talked to a ton of people. They would like to look at other options first. That's just the feedback I'm getting. If the board decides to do something different, that's fine. And I know we're talking about adding like money, but when you're talking about the big scope of what we're looking at, even if you have to spend a little bit of money to buy land, it's like if you're spending 100 million and it's 101, that's almost like buying a pair of gym shoes for $100. Now you're spending 101. And just like with the state, what we did state and everything else, you only have one chance to do this the way you want to do it. And I just don't think it hurts to look. If we don't have the time that's already been set in stone and that's what we're doing, that's fine. I'll support it 100%. I just like the idea of options. And to me, if you find the perfect location, it does cost a little bit. You can say, hey, it's going to cost you this much, just like we did with buildings. We elected to go with 3 elementaries, and people voted for that knowing it was going to cost them more, when originally the state only recommended saving 2. So that's my same mindset of looking at possibly getting land if you're going to get land, or swapping land, or just looking. I just think, just like everything else, we need to look at every possible, so we come back and say, hey, we looked at every avenue, this is the best place. And this is what the majority of people think. That's just mine. I mean, that's why there's 5 people on here.
I mean, the last time the location was in the township for the new high school, it failed miserably because the board elected to take it out of the city. Miserably, because, I mean, they lost a huge chunk of revenue. So, and I have no idea, you know, where you're talking about property.
That's why I don't.
In the city limits, we're very limited.
Right. That's why, like I said, when Denny Sanders said there was land within the city limits available, I think there's land right across from the vineyard that Hinkle Schuler owns.
The vineyard is
That's not
city?
That's township.
According to Denny, that's in the city.
That's township.
Well, I mean, it seems like you have a lot more information than I'm even aware of, Bob. So I'm not sure.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying either we'd like to have a committee or not. I'm just saying, that's all I'm saying. And I don't know all the land in the city. And I don't know.
I mean, the junior high is by our sports complex. The junior high is beside every tennis, track, lacrosse, football. We're within a half a mile of Interstate 75. The corner beside it may be a possibility in the future. And I mean, I think it's like an ideal location. And Brent Centers is working on a huge program that is revitalizing the downtown. And I can't imagine that, Brent wouldn't be happy to see a high school within the city. It would bring business to our community.
I mean, that's why it's, I just know you go down there at 5:30 on a Friday night, traffic-wise. It's backed up forever.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're throwing 300 more kids driving, plus buses on Friday night, plus football kids walking across the street. There's just a lot of schematics that I thought should have been talked about. that I didn't hear any of that. I didn't hear based on a traffic study. I didn't hear anything on those points. It just, all I heard was in the CAT meeting as I was at, it would fit. And it would fit tight.
Well, I think that's the point that's later. I don't think that's, I think that's, or it should have been earlier, before next one or
Well,
the
and
other.
I mean, that's up to you guys to decide if you want or not. If you don't, then we can do it. If we do,
I'll of course do whatever anybody wants to do. That's just my opinion. I'll go along with the board. I just want us to be careful. I know when I left the CAT meetings, I felt, and I seen the survey, that it was going to be Skank, Pennyroyal, Hunter, junior high was going to the high school, and that we were going to renovate that building, and that we had not discussed any land purchase, and that only left the junior high for the high school. I mean, that was what I took away, but that doesn't mean everyone else did. I completely understand where you say that people are having, they really don't know. The meetings, they probably.
No,
Yeah.
I agree with that. But I purposely asked that question when we voted on the configurations of the building. I said, if we already decided where the buildings were going. I mean, you can go pull the minutes. I asked that specific question, and I was told no. We never discussed locations. We're building a new high school. But now it seems like we've already discussed and decided it's going where the junior high is. So that was just contrary when I voted for
Well,
the last.
I don't think it was ever set in stone, but at the same time, the board is passing what was presented to us from the CAT team. The CAT
Right.
team, at all the meetings that we went to, every, I think, configuration of the high school was on that junior high site. They did it in different ways. So maybe that's why, we're talking semantics about in stone and not in stone. But I do think that the main area, at least the ones that I was at, that I saw.
No, I understand what you were saying, but my point was when we had talked about, when we approved the facility plan of what we wanted, 3 elementaries, a junior high and high school, I specifically asked, have we decided where the buildings were going? And I was told that we're building 3 elementaries, we're renovating the high school, and we're renovating the junior high to high school and building a new high school. Because I said people might have voted differently if they thought it was going here, 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 or they had an option to move it here, but that was never figured. You know what I mean? So,
Well, I thought that at meetings, though, I thought in the survey, I thought this time, the community was going to be in control. That's what I thought. I mean, I don't think it's like, I feel like as a board, on this go around, the community is guiding me in the direction through the survey and the CAT meeting, not me making the decision for them like it's been in the past. That's just how I felt about it.
I agree with that.
Because they did decide on the elementaries, correct? Am I correct on that? I thought we did narrow that down. Locations for
Well,
elementaries.
it was the
Renovation.
three were elementaries they talked about. The preference was
right.
Hunter, Gerke, and then Pennyroyal. But
Mhm.
we did not discuss the extra cost that would be if we did Pennyroyal because of the sanitation and the gas. I know that was not discussed specifically.
Yeah, I think that came up as an issue after, didn't it?
Correct.
Okay. Yeah, I guess for me personally, the bottom line is I don't mind to have a committee. I think it's, having a committee and looking at different options is a good idea. The issue I have is I don't want to undermine all the work the CAT team has put in, the finance, team has put in. So if we can just have the parameters of knowing, okay, well, this is kind of what we've worked on, make sure that we have the architects involved as well. Look at options.
I'll say that my impression was actually the same as Bob's. I didn't realize we were voting on the locations of the buildings. I thought we were just voting on 3 new elementaries, renovating the current high school to a junior high, and building a new high school. I thought that's what we had approved. I'm not necessarily wedded to any idea as to what the site is. I'm happy with the junior high site. If there's another land swap or whatever, but I kind of feel like we should at least ask the question, collect the data. It shouldn't take more than a week or two. I mean, like Lori said, if you look inside the city, there's probably only less than 5 properties that are even within the realm of possible. So it shouldn't take more than 2 weeks to look at the data, look at the land, get a dollar amount, and then make a decision on it. If this lingered longer than the end of June, we've taken way too long on it.
Yeah. Dollar amount, or because any dollar amount's going to change the millage that we're looking at currently.
And that should be a huge deciding factor on the whole thing. I mean, like Lori said, we want to keep the millage as low as possible. So it has to be a super compelling reason for us to procure more land if we're going to go down that route. Because that is a big selling point, is having such a low millage to have state-of-the-art facilities, 5 of them.
Yeah. And I agree with that 100%, Lori. But my thinking is you at least give them options. I mean, this is.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with your committee, Bob. I just, the timing and being budget neutral. That's only my, and but I walked away thinking that the CAP meetings meant and what our survey meant. I mean, I was at 3 of the meetings plus the big one. I walked away thinking it was the 3 elementaries where they are, Schenck, Penny Royal, and Hunter. I walked away with no doubt that the high school was going to be renovated to be the junior high. I mean, that was what they said. It had to be. It was cheaper to renovate than to build. They could move them up there because of the auditorium. I mean, all of these things were discussed. So, you know, I've been down this before and it failed. So I'm cautious. I'm just extremely cautious. And I mean, we're in a historic precedent time. The city's lost money, schools have lost money, and families have lost tons of money. We have to be aware of what our millage is going to be. People have been affected and lost lots of their income. And so, I mean, we just have to be aware. I just don't want the same route again. I mean, I would like to stay neutral and keep the millage where.
You know, to me, it should be 3 things, and it has to stay within the city. We can swap land, it goes where the junior high is, or if we find a perfect location and we can acquire the land, what's that cost? Because Andy and I have been to a few of the meetings, and I mean, like Andy just said, I didn't come out of that thinking it was automatically where the junior high was. I mean, I just never did. And I have people.
You know, it's like text. I think everybody came away with something different. I really do. And like I said, I have no problem with you and Andy doing that work. I think it's a great idea. I think the time, though, is very important. And I think if you're going to change millage, it better be for a really good reason, because I do not want to change the millage at this point in time. I don't.
Well, and that goes back to another point that kind of bothers me. Going back to the last meeting when I'm bringing up 100 times, I asked specifically, do we know where the building's going? We said no. Then I couldn't understand how we can come up with a millage if we don't know where the buildings are going.
I mean, I would feel really comfortable if you why wouldn't you ask Shane Centers to be on that committee when he's the one doing the revitalization program for the city?
I just had talked to Danny because he had approached me.
Brent.
And I was surprised. That's why I brought it up, because I was surprised people were coming to me and saying, "Hey, is it going where the junior high is?" And I was going, "No, it's still up in the air. We haven't decided where it's going."
I'm sure that Brent would be a great asset for you. I mean, he has looked at all these properties and went through the same company that Lebanon used to revitalize their downtown, and he's been working on that for a couple of years now. So I know he knows where all properties would be, for one, and I know it would be an asset in that area.
Right, and I agree. I mean, it has to be done quickly if we're going to do it. And it won't take very much to look at it. Like Andy said, there can only be a couple places it could possibly go, and it's either going to be cost effective or cost prohibitive. And then we just go from there. At least we can say, my whole point is, at least we can come back and say, hey, we looked, and this is the best thing we as a community decided.
Right. I think that makes sense. I think I'm trying to figure out the disconnect between everybody. And I think, we're all doing this for the first time, most of us anyway. we didn't go to every meeting, but like when I was at the meetings, it was my understanding the CAT's recommendation was, was a certain configuration based upon SHP looking at the different locations and things like that. But yeah, when we approved the plan, I don't know that we had set places except for the elementaries. I think we did have set places there, but I guess I was just looking at it as the CAT's team's recommendation was probably going to be what they had looked at for the past couple months, which at every single meeting was the high school at the junior high, as far as I was aware. So I think there's just, it's a different process. We're at different meetings. So yeah, I think that it makes sense to, continue looking, but also just keep in mind that work they've done and maybe bring them in as well. Because they're going to know more than anybody about the properties we have and, the cost. They've already looked at all that stuff.
Right.
That way we're not duplicating efforts.
I felt like early on, because I went to like the first two of the CAT meetings and then didn't go to any for a long period until the forum, just the way the schedule shook out.
Yeah.
So for me, I felt like we were just kind of deciding what we kind of wanted from a configuration wise. So I heard the discussion. I think the parameters we gave them up front was probably we weren't going to buy land as part of this whole thing. And that's why that may have come out. But when you look at it, we could have up to the land of 4 buildings worth that we would be eliminating if we go to 3 elementaries. And if we somehow end up somewhere other than where Hampton Bennett and junior high are, plus the other 2. So we may have up to 4 parcels with buildings that we're going to have to figure out what to do with, just like we're dealing now with Laura Farrell. And, are we going to keep up on those buildings? Can we repurpose those, or is that, the chips we have to trade? I'd be willing to do that as a swap of all those properties, but I like Lori, I didn't want to take on more millage, but we should ask the question, what can we do with those multiple properties that we would have so that we don't end up holding a bunch of extra land?
Yeah, I agree.
Right.
So Bob, do you want to kind of take this on with Andy?
I can, if you guys want me to. It might be better if I'm very opinionated sometimes, and it's not, so more of a person, that I'll do it, and I don't mind doing it. I know Andy wants to do it unless somebody else wants to be a part of it.
I'm fine. I mean, if you'll do it, I'm fine with you and Andy.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay. And then it sounded like you had some maybe people interested already. And then maybe, like I said, I think the CAT team and somebody from SHP would be really, really good.
And then, like Lori said, I can talk to Brent.
Right.
If he wants, because the only thing with the city person, they're going to know where the land is that's available to get and who owns it.
Right.
A lot quicker than we can hunt it down.
Mm-hmm.
And probably know what the cost and, and like I agree with both Chris and Lori. I mean, I don't want to buy land if we don't have to, but if we can find a good swap, get a really good piece of land, it'd be nice. If not, we always have the junior high place to put it. My main thing is making sure no one can come back and say we didn't look.
Right. Okay. All right. Any more discussion on that, guys?
Just for clarification from my part, would then, with what I'm afraid that we may not, and I apologize, Mr. Fleming, if we don't, I'm worried about the 22nd. I know you said 2 weeks. We can do our best to get it done by that time. It's just difficult maybe to get everybody together, but I could see about that. But definitely by the 27th of July meeting, if we can't meet the 22nd, would that be okay? And go ahead that way?
Yeah, that's fine. I didn't want this to linger all summer long because I know the finance committee wants to get on with their work, and we got levies to prepare for. It was more of I was just trying to not put this out there to last forever. I want it to be a quick thing, figure it out, move on.
The Career Center is having their June meeting in person. we are having our June board meeting in person this time. We're starting this month.
Yeah, what date I'm sorry, I just want to go back. What date did you say, Dr. Sander, for this committee to kind of wrap things up?
We'll do our best. I know Mr. Fleming said 2 weeks, which would be the 22nd.
Mhm.
I can do our best. I just worry about people's schedules. We can do our best to wrap this up by the 22nd. If not, we don't have a work session on the in July, so it would be till the 27th July. But what we would have, the 17th of June is a finance committee meeting. And I would anticipate, that's the third Wednesday of the month. I would anticipate the next finance committee and after that to be the 15th of July. So I would say the wrap up, that's a drop dead date so that these figures could go to the finance committee if there's any difference. So they would be able to come up with what we would need to do and a recommendation. So we have it's all put to bed by the 15th of July before that meeting.
Will that give us enough?
July 15th for the committee work?
For the facilities committee, that would have to be the very, very latest. I'm going to try my best to do the 22nd of June. I just worry about getting everybody's calendars together to get it done in 2 weeks.
So will we even need a 17th finance meeting? I mean,
May
I don't
answer
see,
that?
I mean, I don't point in like moving forward unless, if they're doing research and, I mean, it kind of negates if if you're even thinking about purchasing property, kind of negates everything we've done so far.
Rob, do you want to hop in on that one?
I was just gonna say that the finance committee meetings have more depth than just this issue. And I certainly would advocate, if we have the opportunity to get together, that there are other issues to discuss, but if you would prefer to defer, I certainly understand.
No, I'm fine with that. That's fine.
Well, if the facilities committee has until July 15th, does that give us enough time between July and August? And I don't know, Bob, did you anticipate like community outreach with the committee, or would the committee just come to the board?
We can have a special Zoom meeting.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going,
I mean, I anticipate, like Andy said, I think it could go pretty quick, because there's two basic things. You gotta see if there is any land, which is gonna be very few places within the city. And two, can you even buy that land? Or will they swap it, or will they sell it? If both of those are, if one's a yes, the other one's a no, you're done, you just move on. It's all over. Because there's not gonna be like 15 places to look at. There's gonna be maybe one or two, I don't know if there is any, but there could be one or two.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
And then it's to be, whoever owns that, that's where the city's gonna come in. And then two, are they gonna wanna swap it, or they're gonna wanna sell it? And if those are all no's, then we're done in about a day.
Okay. Well, I was just thinking if you needed, I didn't know if you needed to do like community surveys, or if you guys were just gonna form an opinion as a committee and then come to the board, just to make sure you have enough time to do that all before August, if that makes sense. But it sounds like it should be fine.
Right, right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, the only reason you need to do a committee survey is if you're gonna add a bunch of money to it.
Okay.
And that's a whole different issue. If you're not, which I don't anticipate we will, because if it is very expensive, then I wouldn't recommend doing it anyway.
Okay.
So Mr. Nipper, can you call me tomorrow so we can see about maybe setting up a time for the committee to get to work and get get together on that?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Let's see. Oh, and on the June 22nd meeting, I think I had talked to Dr. Sander about this. I'm on vacation, so I wouldn't be able to do in person. Zoom is fine with me, but if you guys want to do it in person, because I know Zoom's difficult, that's fine with me too. So I'm going to leave that up to you guys. Lots of input. Well, maybe we'll discuss that later. I suppose.
We have to start sometime. We do, well, I mean, we have to start sometime. I don't mind whatever we do. The Career Center is starting this month. Their meetings are going to be public June 21st or 2nd, whatever date that Thursday is.
What do we have upcoming on the agenda for June 22nd?
We've got items we talked about at this particular
right.
time. And then the only thing new when it comes to the major new part would be any first reads for hiring that I would prefer maybe take action on, so we could get the teachers under contract that'd be recommended for a job. And then there would be a resolution to proceed that we would get officially from Matt Nolan and his work. That would be from Rob and his office, the second part to actually put that on the ballot. And if you want, we could, because we still have the flexibility, Ms. Wolfenberger, if you wanted to have it meeting, but you Zoom in, because legally you are still allowed to Zoom in until the end of November.
Okay.
So we could have it in person, but then put you up on that smart panel in the Zoom meeting if you'd like.
Can you make it
Yeah,
smaller?
Big.
I mean, that's fine. Whatever you guys want to do. Especially if I can Zoom in anyway, then I'm fine either way.
Yeah, by law, you can Zoom in, and we could do it in person otherwise, if that's the desire of the board.
Rachel, I'd feel really bad if I said you couldn't Zoom in on vacation.
Thank you. But do you guys want to make,
I'll try not to show you any more of the ocean while I'm standing here on the balcony.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I do. Thanks.
Well, in person or Zoom, guys, for June 22nd.
I'm ready to go in person. I mean, we're going to send kids to school in August. We better think it's safe for us to meet too.
Yeah, that's
But it's
fine.
In person.
Okay. So I will Zoom in because I'm going to be out of town, but then we'll do it in person and just make sure we socially distance, maybe do it in a different room, whatever you guys want to do is fine. Okay.
Works for me.
All
Me
right.
too.
Next up, we have reports and comments by individual board members. And Bob, I think I usually start with you.
You usually do. I just want to thank everybody for all the hard work they were doing on things. Lori and everybody and Rob, the finance committee, and everybody else for Rodney and everybody else for all the people at the CAT meetings. I think when we come out of that, we're going to have great facilities in the best spots possible that people want. Robin, also with the 6th grade camp, thank you. And that's it.
Thank you. I believe Lori is up next.
Am I?
I'm not sure.
The
order
I'll
of
just
sitting,
take it-
so I never know.
Well, since I've not been able to speak and haven't had decent audio, I will take just a moment to say that congratulations to Josh and to Josh Long and Rachel Chamberlain on their Crystal Apple Award. I also want to do a great big shout out to all of the admin, tech department that were involved in our virtual graduation, our gallery of graduates. I was so moved by our virtual graduation on Friday. It just touched my heart, and it's not the same, but it was something. And I think the students and families appreciated all of the effort. Couldn't have been done without all of those administrative teams. The tech department, I can't imagine, Amy, what you and Craig went through, making sure all of these things happened. But I was just so happy and so proud to be a part of this district when I seen all of these above and beyond, like the 6th grade camp. You know, it is a rite of passage. And Robin, you've worked so hard on that with everyone. And I want everybody to know that I know everyone on the board, I'm just so thankful that we are all in this together. I wouldn't want to do this with anyone else. I've seen, the meals that we've given these kids, Rodney. I can't be more proud of the staff or a community. And I just wanted to express that. And I know I'm the one that wears her heart on her sleeve anyway, but let me tell you something. Every one of you have my heart. You really do. I just thank you so, so much. That's it. And Rachel, you are not a yellow starburst, trust me.
Thank you, Mrs. Raleigh. All right. Now we'll go to Mr. Sizemore.
Thanks, everybody, for joining in the meeting. I appreciate you letting me join from afar. Just appreciate all the hard work, everybody. I was able to drive through the gallery of graduates. I was driving Friday night during the actual ceremony, so I'll have to catch that. But I know a ton of hard work went into all that, and still going on for preparation so we can start up. And whatever school's going to look like in the future, we know that we're looking out for what's best for our kids. And thanks, everybody, for that.
Thank you. All right, Mr. Fleming.
Enjoy.
It's hard to top all that. So I will say with the gallery graduates, it was pretty impressive when I pulled off of Sunnybrook on the 4th Street and I stopped right there. So that's just a testament to the community, not just coming out to support our graduates. But yeah, thanks a lot.
Thank you. And I will echo what Mrs. Raleigh has said. It's really hard to find a way to thank everybody and representative of how thankful we are. Trying to think of ways, but we are so appreciative of everybody, from all of our staff, all of our administration. Everybody has just gone above and beyond, and we appreciate it so much. The Gallery of Graduates is great. The senior awards, virtual graduation. I mean, this is something that, nobody has done before. And it's the first time that we're dealing with this, and everybody's done such a great job. We appreciate it. Mrs. Denisi coming up with an option for 6th grade camp is awesome. I mean, how's that? You don't get any taste of 6th grade camp. So that they're able to do one day is, so much better than nothing. We appreciate that. And I think that's all I have. Oh, congratulations also, obviously, to Rachel Chamberlain and Mr. Long. What an honor that is to get the Crystal Apple Award. It's such a testament to them and how much people think about them, revere them, and look up to them. So that's great. Congratulations to them. And now I can make my computer work. I believe we have on the agenda an executive session for purposes of personnel with no action to follow.
Correct.
Okay. All right. We have a motion for that.
So moved.
Oh, oh gosh. I think it was Mr. Nipper made the motion and Mrs. Raleigh second.
Mr. Nipper?
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore?
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh?
Yes.
Mr. Fleming?
Yes.
Ms. Wolfenbarger?
I forgot one thing. All of you guys sitting here are pink starbursts, not yellow starbursts. I wanted to let you know that specifically. And yes, Mr. Sanders.
Okay, and then it's 7:25. If we could plan on being in an executive session at 7:30, give me time to switch over, and I have to dial in so you'll be able to hear me, if that's okay.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Thank you all very much.
Okay. Do we have to go to the other meeting?
Just so you guys know, Rachel is John W. now.
It took me a minute. I had to log in on my phone again. I apologize. Amy? Andy's getting a message saying join the meeting because he was previously removed by you.
All right.
He's gonna start taking this personally, Amy.
I think I kicked Lori out too, so I might have to do that. I'll send her one too.
Okay, if you would, yeah, because I know she's missing as well. Good thing you're not up for contract tonight. It could be a bit
know.
iffy.
I still got a whole other year.
Amy, whatever you do, don't look at Chris's screen. He's being mean and showing us the ocean and the beach. I know.
Yeah.
That's what I'm missing, to be with you guys.
And we look much better than that ocean and beach, don't we?
Yeah. I sunburn easy, so I had to come in and out of the shade, get in the shade anyway.
There you go. Rachel, just so you know, you're muted when we get ready to start.
I really think we should put that view on instead of my Post-it note that says we'll be back shortly during executive session. That would have been better.
It could be, but see, we got to go somewhere else. So we have to get off of here. Have you heard any response from Andy or Lori?
Andy just texted me and said, sooner or later, I'm going to get the hint. So, and I said, if it's still not working, just to send me the message of what it's saying, because I resent them a different invite.
Okay.
Lori acted like she wasn't getting back on and said just vote the same as us. Oh wait, she now says she's coming. Okay.
Okay.
Because I texted her and asked her if she was getting back on or not. So.
Yeah.
Hold on.
If they're having trouble, Rachel, we do have a quorum. If you want to adjourn, we do have I mean, it's up to you. I feel bad that they're struggling.
I'm going to look at a setting. real fast.
Okay.
Give me
Okay.
like 30 seconds and then I'll let
Okay.
you know.
Yeah, Lori just said they removed me. I can't get in. So
Meeting tab. Allow meeting tab. Hold on just a second.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Okay.
I'll second it.
Okay.
Rachel, do you want me to take roll call with the three? I didn't hear you. You're muted. Can you unmute her, Amy? Because Rachel's muted. I cannot hear her. She's RRW.
Got it.
Oh, there she's unmuted. There you go. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. We do have a first and second.
Motion and a second. Do you call the roll?
Okay. Mr. Nipper,
Yes.
Mr. Sizemore,
Yes.
Mrs. Raleigh's not presently in. Mr. Fleming's not presently in. Mr. Wolfenberger.
Yes.
Okay. Motion to adjourn approved 3-0 at 8:06.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all. See ya.
Dr.
Y'all
Sander,
take care. Thank
I
you.
did disable that feature. So if that ever happened again in the future, just now. So,
Okay, that's fine. I'm just going to text the two of them, let them know we're adjourned, okay?
okay.
All right, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It was nice working with you.
Thanks. I know. I still got another year, right?
Yeah, you better make amends though. All right, you take care.